Good morning, children. Today I am going to tell you about Mother's Day, and it is a lesson from the snapshots for class 11 English. It is the third video in which you will know how Mrs. Pearson tries to overcome the problems and how it was being guided by Mrs. Fitzgerald. How the children like Doris and Cyril reacted, and her husband also reacts, but she knows that what extent they can go to. But here it is enough done by Mrs. Pearson, which is really realized by Mrs. Fitzgerald. And now you will know how the things come back to normalcy and how the matter is resolved between wife and husband, mother and children, and these things are quite essential to happen in the family. Because if the things go on wrong track and if it is decided to come back on the same thing, certainly it must be brought back. So here I will tell you something more. The real Mrs. Annie Pearson returns. Mrs. Fitzgerald, actually Mrs. Annie Pearson, enters and finds Doris in tears. Her family continues to get a scolding in front of her also. Mrs. Annie Pearson, actually Mrs. Fitzgerald, informs her that she was putting everyone in their place. When Mr. George Pearson shouts at his wife, she threatens to slap his big, fat, silly face, which is not good at all. Now Mrs. Annie Pearson and Mrs. Fitzgerald go back to their original personalities. What is that? The real Mrs. Annie Pearson, now Mrs. Fitzgerald, gets really disturbed and wants everyone to leave as she wants to talk in private with Annie. The real Mrs. Fitzgerald, she tells Mrs. Fitzgerald, that is enough. That is enough. Let them change back and get into their true selves. Mrs. Fitzgerald again speaks some magic words, and they again get back to their own selves. Mrs. Fitzgerald says that she enjoyed every moment in her changed personality. Annie remarks that she did not enjoy this changeover. Mrs. Fitzgerald wants Annie not to be soft on her family. She wants her to remain firm. Annie says that she will be able to manage her husband and children. Otherwise, they will again start treating her indifferently. She must wear a tough look and talk to them rudely if she wanted them to behave in the right manner. For a change, when Annie smiles, her family members smiles back, feel very relaxed as they had cancelled their going out. Annie feels that they all as a family should play a game of rummy. She also asks her children to prepare supper for the family, for which they readily agree. She also wants to have a talk with George, her husband, for which everybody agrees. In this way, the play ends on a happy note where the children and husband are willing to do whatever Mrs. Annie Pearson suggests. So, Mother's Day chapter These are the highlights that you must know. What are the things that are highlighted in the chapter? The two neighbors, Mrs. Annie Pearson and Mrs. Fitzgerald, discuss Annie's problems. Mrs. Fitzgerald suggests Annie to be the boss in her house and not to meet everyone's demand. Annie agrees that her children should treat her properly. Mrs. Fitzgerald points out that the children and her husband should not be allowed to treat her as a servant. She also has the right to enjoy herself. Mrs. Fitzgerald suggests that they should temporarily exchange their personalities by using a magic spell she had learned in the East. A transformation takes place and the personality of Mrs. Fitzgerald shifts into the body of Mrs. Annie Pearson and vice versa. Mrs. Fitzgerald, now in the body of Annie, stays at Annie's house and sends her in Mrs. Fitzgerald's playing cards and smoking, which horrifies her. Her mother refuses to make tea for her or iron her yellow silk dress. Doris is surprised at her mother's behavior. Annie continues drinking, and both her daughter and son are shocked. They presume that something is certainly wrong with their mother. Annie tells them that they are so engrossed in their own activities that they hardly care for her. She also informs them of her intention of not doing any household work on Saturday and Sunday. Mr. George Pearson and his husband comes and finds his daughter crying. He also gets shocked at his wife's drinking and totally disapproves it. George is enlightened by Annie that he was a laughing stock in his social circle. When he goes to attend the parties or club, she tells him that people call him Pompey Pearson, which he does not like at all. George goes out in anger while he wants to show his importance in the family. When Cyril objects to his mother about behaving badly with his father, he is criticized by his mother. Now the real Mrs. Annie in the body of Mrs. Fitzgerald returns. George appears and complains about what was happening in his house to Mrs. Fitzgerald. Mrs. Fitzgerald asks George and Doris to leave her and Annie alone for some time, promising that everything was going to be right. When alone, Mrs. Fitzgerald at present any chance get back in their bodies. After this shock treatment, Annie's family starts giving her more respect and attention. They also pay attention to her likes and dislikes. In this way, what does happen? She proves Mrs. Fitzgerald is successful in just saving Mrs. Pearson suffering from the dogmatic views of the women that she should serve all the family members and she should not raise her voice. Means the women who is mother, wife and a lady also, she has also got some right to express her sense of freedom and she is also entitled to enjoy her life in her own way, and everyone in the family, if understands his or her own responsibility, that makes everyone understand something very clearly, and there is no dispute after it. The family becomes a happy family. Otherwise, someone enjoys and someone suffers. It is not a real passion and love to be spread among the family members. So, it is quite essential that everyone should try to respect one's feelings and always be cooperative, sensitive, and not humanitarian, but be a person who behaves like son, daughter, and father and mother like that. It is the family. Thank you, children. Thank you. I will tell you about word meanings and something more in the next video that you will surely watch. Thank you, children.